Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY. You can find Qseido at qseidotokyo.com and at Qseido on Instagram.
My name is Jacob. I'm a food fan on the big internet.
My name is Drew Brown. You can find me on Instagram at DCB, DEESEEBEE.
And you both might need to be louder.
Okay.
We'll try.
Okay, so we are at the Tokyo International Pen Show, I believe for the fourth year in a row.
Something like that.
4 or 5, I don't remember. We've been here a lot. We've done this before. You wouldn't know by our delay and our, technical difficulties, but we've done this a few times, always with
We're highly experienced. We know this stuff.
We're experienced at the technical difficulties. We're very good at having those. But yes, we are here at the 2024 Tokyo International Pen Show, live on Instagram, and we're really happy to have a special guest here all the way from the United States. Who is it? I couldn't tell.
DEESEEBEE.
That's right. And so, just to begin, we are at the pen show. This is the third day, and, we've hopefully all had a chance to walk around, take a look around. Let's get a general vibe check. Jacob, how have you felt about this year's show?
If anything, it's even more international than last year. I mean, we talked about it last year that they finally put sort of the eye in international, right? Both in terms of attendees and vendors, right? It's just even more now. I hear so much English and I see so many new vendors from outside Japan that I didn't see last time.
Yeah, if there was a less international vibe in previous years, I would not maybe feel as welcome, but here, I don't feel out of place at all, which is crazy because I 100% am, but it just feels like another pen show, honestly, and the vibe is 100% authentic and real and every bit as passionate as, the best pen shows I've ever been to.
I agree with both of you, and I think that specifically this year, some of the changes that I've noticed is that they seem to have a lot more bilingual, or at least volunteers that speak English.
And they say it on their armband, too.
Yep, and they make it very clear who you can go to for help. I think on the first day there were they had some technical difficulties as well in terms of managing the line, and I know that some people weren't happy about that. But overall I got in at, 1:15, which is not bad at all.
I think that's part of the pen show experience.
Yeah.
I've never been to a pen show where that is handled perfectly.
I thought it was good. And then I definitely heard a lot more English-speaking volunteers. And to your point, I think I hear a lot more. And this might have to do with the yen being very weak right now. But I definitely hear that there are a lot more non-Japanese speakers at the show. And specifically this year, I feel like they have, or maybe it's just what I'm interested in, but it feels like they've got a lot more Taiwanese vendors at the show. I'm specifically talking about Fine Writing International. I think they've had Yashin before, but the addition of Fine Writing International, Kyokuhaku, I really think that this show, at first I was like, do I want to go for 3 days? But now I'm like, you know what? There are a lot of interesting people to see, to talk to, both Japanese vendors as well as international vendors. And for me, I hope they really lean into getting more Taiwanese vendors here at the show, just because the proximity is so close. They have some Malaysian vendors this year. Maybe we'll get some Filipino vendors out here next year. But I don't know if there's a conscious effort on the organizing committee, but that's something that I really enjoyed about this year's show.
Yeah, and I think now, this is really differentiating this show from the other Japanese pen shows. So we talked about that during the COVID years, that although it was a very well organized show, for us who live here, it didn't really stand out in a sense that we could get more or less the same experience from some of the retail events like Mitsukoshi or from Tony Lims. Now this is really the international show, which is good both for people who live here because we get to buy from, there are vendors here from India, from Israel, from Taiwan, from Turkey, from all over the world. And for the people who are coming to Japan, this is, I think, by far the most accessible pen show, right? I mean, good luck trying to find Wagner's pen show if you don't follow.
Well, I missed it on the first day.
Right.
And you know what I think is really good is that a lot of these vendors, or some of the Japanese vendors, probably never had international customers before because they've always had the idea, oh, international customers scary. But being at the pen show, interacting with so many international people, and understanding even though their English might not be, 100% native perfect, it's still okay. It's still easy enough to interact with international customers. I hope that this opens the doors for them to sell, even consider selling maybe online, maybe internationally. And I think it's just a really good opportunity to bring people together.
Do you think that some of that might have to do with the fact that it's so much easier now to take card transactions out of the country? Because I imagine at one point it was probably very difficult to actually just make the sales internationally. Now you can, like, I'm using my card just like I'm in the U.S. right now.
In the past, some vendors that we've talked to, they would actually, the card would go through, but they would cancel your order if you paid with an international credit card. So there's much less of that now.
Yeah.
But also, to your point, contactless payment is now the norm. Credit card is now. So this intermission was something that was really interesting, and it kind of goes to the point, but the opposite way. They were soliciting maybe Japanese speakers who are afraid to speak to the foreign vendors. They're giving a tour with bilingual people so they can go around the international booth, and they would have a translator with them.
That's so cool.
So that's something that's interesting. But back to your point, credit card payments are now being more common. I think the first shows that we went to, a lot of it was cash only, right? But now it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Should we talk a little bit about what we have seen, what we have bought, etc.?
Sure. Why don't you start?
Well, because I've been here a bit longer than you guys have. Well, you were here yesterday, right?
I was here yesterday and the day before.
Yeah, I want to start with the what I'm most excited about.
Okay.
Everything. I bought some mascara.
Yeah, I need a whole rundown of what this even is.
I'll show you. This is called ink mascara. The screen is delayed. So the idea is that you dip this thing in ink and then you just draw super broad lines, and you can adjust it and sort of write. If you want to use this for journaling, you could in theory do that. I don't know why you would do that, but it's really to do ink sampling.
That's really cool.
It's like a flat kakimori nib.
Yeah, and because of these little cards, it holds quite a lot of ink. And the guy customizes it. He looks at how you hold it and he customizes it to your writing angle. So this is a customized ink mascara.
Yeah, that could work like an overfeed. Yeah, that's very interesting.
I was expecting like a brush, but this makes much more sense. So it's effectively a coil with, a flat end.
Yeah.
And the coil is the ink reservoir, and the flat end is the writing surface.
That's it, yeah.
Huh. That's simple and clever.
So how much did that cost?
This was 13,000 yen. So it's not super cheap, but he only makes a small number of them.
That's about $90, 90 US dollars.
I mean, if he's hand making those, that's...
Do you want to take turns, or have you guys bought anything?
I haven't bought anything.
All right, so I purchased this little thing that looks like a phone case, right? But when you open it, it's actually a 3-pen case. And I just bought it because I thought this was something... I've never seen a pen case where it's actually 3 individual pen sleeves that are sewn on. So I thought this was pretty cool, and I was a little bit worried because it's not got a cover on it, right? So I was a little worried if it would fall out, but it doesn't seem like it does. If I close it and I pick it up, nothing. So it's a different take on a pen loop, a pen wrap, in essence. So I thought it was pretty cool.
That's cool. I like that. And it's not every day you see a pen case that looks different. Like
Yeah.
in order for them to make a new and unique and different pen case, I feel like it takes more and more to do that. And this, yeah, like you said, I've never seen this design before.
Yes, it's pretty original. I got it from Paper Tree. They actually designed this pen case, so it's a funky one. They use some pretty decent leather out there, Saffiano leather, I
Yeah,
believe.
the individual sleeves are more
Sturdy
than I would have expected. Yeah, the leather is dense.
Yeah.
It's like a heavy gauge leather. It's not.
And pull it in and out. So once it goes in, you can feel
It's secure. Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
feel that it's pretty secure.
And
So-
like this might not be look, you don't always need your cases to be able to be shaken and gone through some stuff. Like a lot of my cases stay in the same spot, but I still need cases.
Well, this is perfect for you because it's only got 3 in it.
Yeah, it is. That's my jam.
Yeah, and
Three's all you need.
And yeah, it's. They said they developed it because there wasn't a case on the market that you could bring out and it looking fairly elegant. A lot of stuff that we have is more like rugged, and they wanted to develop this case, and I think they really succeeded in this pen case.
Yeah, it almost looks like a wallet or like a
Yeah.
handbag wallet.
Yeah, and this was it's not the most. This is not the cheapest case, and I think it's justified. They've got a lot of handiwork here on the leather. This is about 200-ish to 220 US dollars at today's exchange rate, about 30,000 yen. But I think it's reasonable for what it is. I think it's reasonable for the amount of leather that they use. It's a nice case.
Nice.
So Drew, I know you haven't bought anything yet, but has anything caught your eye? We'll go in turns.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen some swanky glass pens that I would love to have, but I can't justify the price or like basically all the things that I would want are probably a little bit more expensive than I'm willing to spend right now. But no, I like it. Also, it's weird because I, am always I when I approach pen shows, I'm not approaching them as a 100% shopper. Like I have a very different mentality when it comes to pen shows. It's just more about exploration for me. I never come in with a shopping list.
Sure.
Sometimes things catch my eye, but most of the time I don't buy things at pen shows. Most of the time I talk, I connect, I see people I've never seen before, and it's about just kind of the connection element. I've bought plenty of things at plenty of pen shows, but that's never like the predominant goal for me.
Have you seen anything that you maybe wouldn't see back home?
Oh my God, tons of stuff.
Like-
yeah, well,
like what? Name one.
Well, entire brands. Like we were just talking about that. I don't know the name of them, but there was that brand from Turkey that's
Oh,
got pearls embedded in the top and the bottom, and they're using Brooks resin. I'm like, wait, what? I was like, I know that. That's Brooks. And tons of exclusive inks that I've never seen before. So yeah, I mean, honestly, there's so much here that you can't find in the U.S. And you go to the U.S., you pretty much see the same brands at every show. There's just like, do you see almost all of them or a few of them, but they're still the same ones. Here you've got a little bit of overlap, but mostly they're brands I've never had the pleasure of seeing their table for sure.
Yeah. All right, next, Jacob. Next item.
Let's take this. The store is more interesting than the product. So I went to Yamamoto-san's table, as I always do, and I talked to him about paper news, etc. And he told me that the paper mill or paper machine that makes bank paper, which has been around for over 60 years.
Yeah, they're closing that down, right?
They're closing that down, yes. So I bought what seems to be one of the last batches of bank paper.
What's unique about bank paper?
Well, I think it was originally made for like bank accounting ledgers, so it's supposed to be like super durable. You can write something and it'll last for an eternity. Right? It's neutral and it's all kinds of properties that lets you keep like archival grade,
Right. Okay. Okay.
So that's the real like why it was made, I believe. But now obviously there's no need for that anymore, and obviously you have the notebook makers making this, but it's not nearly by the same volumes to justify making it anymore. So unfortunately, bank paper is going away. Takasago premium bank paper is also going away for the same reason. So I went and bought some
All right.
bank paper.
That kind of makes me think of what happened with Tomoe, and that they needed to, offload Tomoe River paper because they made so many other things, and fountain pen writing paper just was not a massive focus for them. Like,
That's pretty much what happened.
right? Is fun and unique paper just going to start continuing to disappear?
That seems to be the trend. And I also talked to Yamoto-san about he was working with the manufacturers. He wanted to sort of develop some new kinds of paper, but basically the number of paper mills, the paper making machines that can make fountain pen friendly papers is like shrinking by the day almost.
Well, I mean, the return's not there. It's such a small industry compared to all the other stuff they are making money on.
Yeah, I mean these paper makers, they are making money on things like cardboard paper and like highly specialized paper for like medical industries and whatnot. But the paper for writing, that's nothing. That's tiny business.
Yeah.
So,
It's kind of sad.
it is sad.
The next item that I bought, I don't have it with me today, but I think you have one, is the Fine Writing International Yoseika
Oh, you also bought it.
pen. Yeah, I did buy that. I was thinking of buying it on Yoseika, but I didn't want to do the international shipping. But the makers, who we know very well because when we first started doing this podcast, we were obsessed with them, right? So they finally brought back the Bronze Age, but they brought it back in the old Parker Vacuumatic style filler. So I bought that, and they say that's the Year of the Dragon pen. So maybe there's going to be future editions per year. It was pretty cool to see them. I've chatted with them on and off on Instagram for a couple years. I know you've talked with them as well. Do you have it here, by the way?
Yeah, so I bought them for the same reason. So for me, I first heard about fine writing back in 2018, and that was when Leo, Inquisitive Quill,
Yep.
he bought, I think, the third generation Bronze Age, and he was posting about it on Reddit. And back then, they had no online presence outside,
Yeah.
it was on Facebook, all in
Yeah.
Chinese. Right, but Leo, I think, gave me the email address where I found it on Facebook, and I emailed them, can I buy this pen? And they sold me the pen and shipped it to Japan. And ever since, I've been a fan of them and their brass pens. But they stopped making them after the 6th generation or whatever, and then only been making resin pens and ebonite
They
pens.
stopped making them after the round one, right? The
That's the
golden
round
armor.
one, yeah, but now finally they brought one back, and yeah, I mean, this is. People who follow Yoseika have seen this one. It's the same vein as the older ones, except that this one is a back fill. I think I have one of my older ones here. Just for
So what's interesting about this pen that I didn't know before is that you'll see on the inside it's pink. I mean, viewers won't be able to see. But on the inside it's pink, right? That's actually wax to protect the inside, and then as you use it, the pink will disappear. And it'll wear with age, which I thought was pretty cool. And if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, what you do is you unscrew the back, and then you'll have a little pump here. And then all you do is you put in ink, and then you pump it a couple of times, and the ink will shoot up into the tube. They did tell me that this is not compatible with regular Yovo housings. I don't know how true that is, but they have a tube and they drilled a hole in the housing to encourage airflow. So if you want to swap nibs, you should use their housing. But again, I haven't experimented with this, so I don't know how accurate it is, or if they're just saying that out of an abundance of caution, but that is what they told me.
I've seen Edison pens do this with their Yovo feeds, and yeah, he does have to, because he's got it's the same filler, I don't know what he calls it, but
Yeah.
it's the same in effect, but yeah, he has to change the Yovo housing to accommodate that little straw.
They also told me that this is different from your eyedropper one, because this filler is a double barrel filler, or it's a double barrel construction. So there are threads here, and you can see there's an outside barrel, outer barrel, and an inner barrel, which is in contact with the O-ring. So there are some slight differences, and obviously then the section is no longer in brass but in plastic.
So that's a gasket that moves up and down to pump in the ink, isn't it?
This,
Yeah.
I would call it a piston.
Right, but it's not a bladder. It's not like
not a bladder.
Like a diaphragm sort of situation.
No.
Because I think the older ones, like the yeah, see that I love that. I love that. See, I didn't get to see that because your hand was there, but I think that's brilliant because it's much more resilient than a bladder like the old vintage ones would have, and probably
It depends. Visconti used to come out with these without bladders.
that's great. I prefer that. And
Not
it's
Visconti, sorry, Omas.
okay. I think that's a great design.
Yeah, and they had this design for quite a while, but as you said, in acrylic. They made some of this for Wagner. So I think Wagner had this design for a couple years, not 2 years at least.
Yeah.
But they finally brought the Bronze Age back, and I'm here for it.
Exactly. Same here. And for me, it was very nice to be able to finally meet the fine writing people in person.
Yeah.
I sent a lot of messages to them. I've been a huge fan for years, but I never met them in person. So
And I think they're working here with Gifner Delta. They were.
That's possible, yeah.
Because Gifner Delta, I think they're friends, and it's them, Yaching, and Gifner Delta at one table. So it's pretty cool. I really appreciated meeting them.
Yeah.
That's all I bought. But Jacob, did you get anything else?
Maybe just one more thing. This is not new, but you should buy it every few years. So this is Bungokan Kobayashi in Shizuoka. They're working with a local makie artist, and they're doing makie on Pilot decimal pens. Now they don't sell these online because
You're not allowed to.
Pilot doesn't like that. So you have to buy them at the event, but they are absolutely stunning.
Wow. That's gorgeous.
So makie decimal pens, and they are quite affordable. There you go.
Yeah, so they don't take the clip off. They just paint it right on. Very cool.
Yeah, that's stunning.
So that's pretty much all we got. I think compared to previous years, I think we've been pretty tame this year. I bought 2 items. You bought like 3 items. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I mean, accounting your 2 writing pads as 1 item.
There was one pen or one table that I found particularly impressive. I didn't buy anything kind of on the fence, but there's a vendor from Israel, from Jerusalem. I can't remember off the top of my head what the name is, but they have this stunning acrylic-like. It's not acrylic. It's a material that they mentioned to me. I can't remember it, but mixed with seaweed.
Okay.
It's just some translucent acrylic-like material mixed with seaweed, and it looked absolutely stunning. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
We have to put a link to the pen maker in the show notes.
I just got the pen I was, thinking about your question. The pen I was probably tempted by the most. I didn't even look at the price, but it was that little, like, pocket pen that was made out of that mustard ebonite that I like.
Oh, the Ton Pen. It's about $200.
That's not that. That's
not
not
bad.
bad. No, it's not. So who makes that?
That's Eboya.
Oh, that's it. Oh, yeah. So that was the pen that was like that probably stopped me in my tracks. I love that look.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have one, and I know they're really, really popular. They don't sell outside of events, so it's only available at events. And I've actually I've been to the factory, so I've seen them making that pen, so that's really cool.
Yeah, that's a rad pen.
So moving on from acquisitions, I'm curious to know, particularly from your perspective, Drew. There's tons of similarities, but there's also tons of differences in the different cultures of pen shows.
Oh my god!
And I'm curious to know, even the pen shows that you've been to in the United States, each pen show is different. But when you come to this show, you're the international part of this panel.
Yeah.
Right? So, bring us through a little bit of coming to the show, what you feel, how you feel it's different, where you think it's similar. Just take us away.
Well, for starters, and I know some pen shows have things around and in the hotel, but this hotel
is not a hotel.
This convention center has restaurants, multiple coffee shops, and it's just that's fantastic. I know the Orlando show, I believe, is like within a mall, so I know there's tons of like optional, but more often than not, it's located in a hotel with one restaurant. So this already, like that was my first impression. Like there's a whole lot going on here other than the pen show. And then second impression, obviously, is just how organized it was. There's multiple people standing at the door immediately, and right there, that doesn't happen. You might have one person standing at the door, but usually you're not greeted until registration table. But here, there are people very clearly a part of the pen show organization structure that you see as soon as you approach the doors. And then the registration is immediately there, immediately helpful, and more or less clear for a non-Japanese speaker. And then I'm greeted with just the organization of the actual floor space, which is staggeringly clean, well organized, and approachable.
Yeah, it's definitely much wider. The aisles are
Yes,
much wider.
so much.
And they don't stuff the vendors into the venue. And I mean, there's a rest space like inside the venue, right? Like where we're sitting at right now, this is a rest space inside the venue.
Unheard of. You won't, like, from the size, scale, and notoriety of this, it can be compared to DC and San Francisco, most obviously. But from an organizational standpoint and an ease of navigation standpoint, there's no comparison. This is the most organized pen show I've ever been to. Not only is there room to walk, and if you are at a table, you're not feeling like you're in somebody's way or you're inconveniencing the thoroughfare, but every table has a probably 8 to 9 foot pole extending from the table that very clearly states what table, what company, what individual is represented at that table. And that is also something that does not exist at any other pen show that I've seen. Sometimes there'll be like maybe a stand or a card, but nothing this obvious or clear. That sort of thing is left up to the individual to kind of promote themselves. Like you'll see like the big brands, like Esterbrook always has a massive sign behind them. But if it's a smaller brand, there might not be anything. They might not even have like a banner, hanging from the front of their table. But here, everything is obvious, everything is clear.
And even if it's in front of their table, people are standing in front of it, right?
Exactly. So you might not have any idea. So finding something, like I was telling Jacob, you can have a ton of people at the DC and San Francisco shows, but if you can't actually get to them, what does it matter? And so it's not all about quantity. I'm learning, quality of navigation is also massively important. So I love that.
By the way, there is one particular reason why you'd almost never see events like this at hotel ballrooms in Tokyo, and that is because it's nearly impossible to book them because they're so popular for wedding receptions. Everyone's booking all the ballrooms in Tokyo for wedding receptions long in advance. It's nearly impossible.
Well, I'm glad they booked it here because I can't imagine this being any better.
Yeah, and the venue's nice, very tall ceilings too, right?
Yeah.
But I think something that is quite interesting, we've had it this year, we had it last year as well, but the show is on 2 separate floors.
Yeah.
Right? How do you feel about...
But it's new this year, right?
Last year we had it as well like this.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. How do you feel about the show being on 2 floors? Do you think it works, or do you think it's easy to forget that the 5th floor exists?
I think that it's no worse than... I'd rather have it this way than what other large shows do, where they have a main ballroom and then random rooms scattered throughout. Like sometimes and I also think that it's equitable for the vendors because you're either on one floor or the other, but you're not, rolling your dice and potentially landing in a random room that everybody forgets about. So I think that, it's not ideal. Like one big room would be the best, but you need to have a massive room for that. But I still do think it's more ideal than, these little random offshoot rooms, because that's not ideal for either the audience or the vendors themselves. Like you've been there before. You've been put in a place that's just not ideal at all.
Mid-Valley.
And it affects everybody. No one wins when you do that. So I guess 2 floors. If that's the most negative aspect of the organization, then I'll take it.
So what about the kind of vendors, the kind of tables, the kind of product that they sell at Tips compared to what you see at US pen shows? Do you see any big differences?
One of the biggest difference I see is just an absence of the overall. I mean, you do see, Sailor is here, you have, Esterbrook is here. You have some just overall brand reputation, but I'm seeing less of that. I'm seeing less distributor presence and more, unless I'm just missing them and I'm not aware of the Japanese distributors, that could be very possible. But I'm seeing less big branding and more small businesses represented, and ones that just have not been on my radar at all. In DC and San Francisco, you have not massive companies, but compared to the small makers, you have multiple tables being taken up by distribution companies and big brands and big retailers too. Some retailers might have up to 6 tables, and that's just not the case here. I think, I don't even know what's the biggest amount of tables somebody can even have here. 2?
There's one with 3, but I'd say that. So, for example, there's Ferris Wheel Press upstairs or here. That's a distributor, and then there's some of the Urban people. They're distributors. But I think the reason why you don't see big branded presences is because most of the vendors are retailers here. So you have a lot of different small retailers who are selling the same brands, maybe selling even the same products, but they have something special there. And they're not here at this show, but for example, at the Kobe Pen Show or the Osaka show, there's a 7-Eleven that shows. They are a 7-Eleven, and they are a franchisee. They have something from Totem Limb, so they bring their stationery. They sell their stationery at the Osaka show.
Do they sell any snacks?
No.
Yeah, I would love to know the story there, because you're right. They have their own. They have their own exclusive inks.
Yeah.
So there's a 7-Eleven convenience store, one of them that has its own lineup of Totem Limb.
What? Correct. So you have even people like that come, and you might be a fan of this retailer exclusive or that retailer exclusive. So a lot of the physical retailers are encouraged to come, and there are so many of them, right? I think one of the questions in the U.S. is there's so little retailers. There are very few retailers. We could probably cobble more retailers between Tokyo and Osaka alone than the entire United States.
That's wild.
Right?
Another thing you don't see is just, dudes selling their collections. Here. In DC, how many tables do you think are just individuals selling their old pens?
In the room I was at, which is the main ballroom, it's everybody except for us.
It's basically, I'd probably say maybe 40.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and that is not represented here at all. I think
there's 4.
Which is, I think, more than we've ever seen. I was going to say that is it's unusual, maybe the first time that we see tables like that
so many
this year.
Pens,
That was not the case before at all.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because that used to be predominantly, when I went to the first DC Pen Show, that was most of the tables. It's gotten to be much more diverse in terms of what tables are represented by whom, but for a while it was individuals. The whole first day was pretty much Trader Day, and the individual collections were pretty dominant.
Yeah, and we definitely see more Western vintage now. We have a couple tables there with Western vintage that we hadn't seen before. But notably, Mr. Pilot, I haven't seen him around.
I was going to talk about that at the end, so this is a somber note. He passed away about a week ago. So, yeah, So Mr. Pilot, or Nikura-san as his name is sort of one of the most famous people in the pen community in Japan, and he's been at all the Wagner events, been at Tokyo Pen Show. He's a very well-known figure in the community, and whenever you hear us talk about Pilot, when you read blogs that talk about lesser-known facts about Pilot, it's all thanks to him. He's been sharing his vast knowledge about. Unfortunately, he passed away about a week ago.
That's very upsetting, because I saw him 3-4 weeks ago with you.
Yeah, we went to Wagner.
And he seemed okay back then. But that's very sad indeed. But
I'm guessing he had a big collection.
He has every Pilot pen that's probably ever made.
I wonder what happened to him.
I don't want to speculate too much, but
no, the pens.
Oh, the pens.
I'm sorry. I meant what happened to apostrophe EM with my terrible speech.
He has children, so who knows what's happened, and he's very old, so he's probably got stuff down. But
well, I hope they go to somebody who's going to appreciate them as much as he did.
I did read about this news about Mr. Pilot, so I know that people in the community knew, but commiserations to him and his family, and hopefully there'll be somebody to take up that mantle for him as well. To not just because they're the Pens, but also I think he loved this so much, so it would be nice to see somebody carry the torch on for him. I think that's what he would want.
Yeah, he was probably more knowledgeable about Pilot than anyone we know, and he was so enthusiastic and so keen on sharing his knowledge, and that's why I'm saying that we owe him a lot, because whenever we talk on the podcast or elsewhere about Pilot or Japanese vintage pens, and whenever you read there are various blogs about Pilot new and Pilot history, most of that is directly or indirectly from him.
He's the originator.
He has been the source of this, and he's well known not just in Japan but in Asia. He went to the Tainan Pen Show and Seoul, etc.
Yeah, I saw him in Korea.
Yeah,
but yeah, very unfortunate. But I hope, like I said, next year maybe there will be some vintage Japanese collector that brings their collection.
Yeah,
and there's definitely some of that.
Yeah.
But moving on from this somber note, I'm curious to know, because you've talked a lot about the vendor and the layout and the organization, and I think a lot of that is cultural and also what they know from other shows or other events that they have in Japan. But what about the customer? What about the difference in customer behavior that you've noticed? Are they the same? Are they different?
That's a good question. I don't know for sure. The type of person, I couldn't put my finger on any stark differences, but it's quieter for sure. But that's not, I'm not surprised by that. That's again, more of a cultural thing, I think. But the interesting thing is, I don't think there has been a static customer type year over year at DC or San Francisco or any other thing. I think it's a constantly evolving type, and I think that's super exciting. And you'd be a better authority on whether or not that's occurring here as well. But yeah, I think that every year I see a more young, more diverse group of attendees at every pen show, and that seems to be continuing. I'm looking forward to going to some more in 2025, and I presume that that's going to continue to be the case. But here it seems like everybody's bought in, logged in, passionate, and excited. They're not expressing it at the same volume as it is in the U.S., but that doesn't mean that it's not very obviously observable.
I think one thing that this show does well is that they kind of, there are booths that they know are very popular, and they have actually a cordon around them so people can line up. Oh. So what they do for the very popular ones is you go, you line up, you get a ticket, and then they call you to come back when it's your turn.
Oh, I hadn't seen that happening.
To purchase. So I think there's a lot less overcrowding at certain tables.
Oh, for sure.
So that's pretty cool.
A lot of that I think has to do with the spacing as well.
That's true.
They aren't trying to pack you in like sardines here.
Yeah, but yeah, as you said, I think Japanese people generally, of course, overgeneralization, but usually more quiet and reserved. But you can definitely still see that kind of passion that's going through. So definitely more similarities than differences too.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you think that the layout is if this was a show in the U.S. probably they would probably fit what's on the second and third and fourth floor, I think is
fourth
what it is.
Fifth.
Fourth and fifth. They would probably put those in the same room. If they could do it. If they really wanted to get it in, they could get it in this room. There's enough space here. They would get rid of the rest area. It could be done. Do you think that there is if they wanted to really pack it in, do you think that there would be enough stores and vendors that they could? Do you think they selectively said, nope, we have enough? Or do you think this is pretty much what they had and they just kind of spaced it out because they had 2 floors available? Was that worded okay? I feel like I was tripping over myself a little bit.
Well, so I wasn't here the first day this time, but what I recall from previous year is that the first day is really quite crowded. So the question is, how do you space it in such a way that you can accommodate everyone during the rush the first day, and then on the more sort of quiet third day, right? So I think what you see here is a fraction of the crowd that we had on the very first day here.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is they also price the first day ticket way differently. The first day is way shorter. The first day starts at 1. The subsequent days start at 9, I think. And the first day ticket is 3,000 yen, and the last day ticket is 1,000 yen. And the second day is 2,000 yen. So you're paying 3,000 yen for half the time.
Why?
Because they know first day is always most popular, so they want to reduce the crowd on the first day.
Okay.
So they use that ticketing strategy. But no, you're right. They absolutely could pack everybody in if they really wanted to, but I think they don't want to.
I don't want them to.
There's one more possibility. I mean, we've seen many cases of sort of COVID restrictions still lingering on. I think there may be some of that they have rules that prevents them from packing too many people into small areas.
Yeah, like the pre-COVID ones in Asakusa, that was pretty jam-packed, right? But I think they're learning year on year, and I think they get a lot of feedback saying people enjoy the space. So I think it's good.
Yeah, I think it is. I'd rather have fewer vendors that I can comfortably spend time with than more vendors that I'm panicked and confused at how to even spend time at their table.
By the way, are we still on?
Yeah.
Good. Did we get any questions?
We have look carefully.
Oh, see, I don't think you're on camera.
I'm there. I'm fine.
Okay.
I think one thing that they do well between the first floor, which is 4th floor, and the second floor, which is the 5th floor, is that they have a stamp rally. I don't know if you've noticed, but they have their themes every year is penguins, and so they have a stamp rally on the 1st floor. They call it the Southern Hemisphere. So they have a stamp that is just half a globe. And then on the 5th floor, they have the Northern Hemisphere for the other half.
I heard them talking about that. I had no idea what they were referring to.
Yeah, so you can collect the two halves to make sure that people go both to the 5th floor and the 4th floor.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a good way for DC to get people in those random rooms.
Yeah. I think maybe DC's a little bit overcrowded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just need fewer rooms.
They need fewer vendors.
Also that.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to the customer thing, there are a lot of high schoolers here. Obviously, I don't think you can tell who are high schoolers and who aren't. But there are a lot of high schoolers out here that are buying stuff. And from this year, I've noticed quite a few more customizations. But yeah, like the nib people, they're not anywhere as crowded as what we see in SF or DC.
And there's also fewer of them.
There are fewer of them.
Like how many nib technicians are here today?
I would say there are 3. So there's Matthew.
I don't even think Matthew is. Oh, Matthew's on the other floor. Probably.
Matthew's on the 5th floor, but I sat down and chatted with him for about 15 minutes.
So Matthew, Gina,
and Nagahara. Nagahara has a steady base of customers. I think that's completely expected. Gina has quite a few customers, and I think what's really working for them is that they are connected. Table-wise with Shown Design.
Mm-hmm.
So when you buy a Shown Design pen, say, oh, by the way, there's Gina, and they can help you with your nib.
There we go.
Which is really smart. I think that's probably the way to do it here at this particular show. Whereas in other shows, people just come to you, whereas here, it's a little bit more of a sales motion.
But in San Francisco, DC, other U.S.-based shows, there might be, 6 or more nib technicians at the show.
I think there are 9.
9.
Woo. Yeah. So it's definitely not the culture yet, but I think maybe having more of these people here will encourage that.
Yeah, from what I understand, the whole nib customization thing is much more of a popular thing in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah, here is more about what they call a nib clinic, pen clinic, which is basically my pen doesn't write. I got this pen from my grandfather, doesn't write. Can you make it right? Or can you remove this, scratchy feeling right? But which often doesn't even mean you need to grind it. You just need to, adjust the times or whatever, right? That's the kind of service that is been common here for a long time. And I mean, if you buy a pen from like a department store, you can go back to the department store. They do this type of pen clinic. But nib grinding is a relatively new thing here.
Yeah.
And I think Nagahara-san talked about that when he started his own business, that he's really explained to people what that is. So that wasn't really a thing.
Yeah, and noticeably, Lichtop is not here this year, and then Wagner, they just rented a separate room. So, you know, I think if they perform better at the previous shows, they'd probably still be here. So yeah.
He apparently just forgot to book.
Oh well, oops. Next year they'll be here. but yeah, it's just less common, and you know, hopefully we'll see more people getting into that kind of stuff, as in Nagahara really doing a big service for the community and doing that education, doing that explanation. But I personally have walked around the show, and surprisingly, a lot of people now recognize who I am, even the vendors, and they say hi. They're like, "Oh, you know, he's the guy that does the nib stuff," and so maybe it's moving. We'll find out. One more thing that I want to ask you is that because this is not at a hotel, people don't go out and get a drink at the bar. There's no after dark scene, right? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it works? Do you think it doesn't? Have you even noticed that?
I was talking to someone here, and they did go somewhere collectively. I think the staff did, but yeah, there's nothing immediately accessible. I think that, for me, a pen show is absolutely 90% let me visit my community friends, let me visit my pen friends. And so something like that is a big part of the appeal. So I do think that, at least in the US, the community engagement is essential for, giving somebody the motivation to travel to some of these larger shows. So yeah, I do believe that it is a benefit, and I would think that there would be more of a, community appeal if that was a little bit more accessible here. But, there's coffee places and stuff like that. I don't know if that's not really an after hours event possible, but, and also, if you need to leave and go to a hotel, you're going to be limited to time. You're going to need to get out of here. But I think that from what I've observed, the after hours social events are one of, if not, the main motivator for people to even attend.
So, Jacob, I think you and I can attest to this in the sense that, after we go to a show, we'll collectively, with our friends, go to a coffee shop and do this, share what we bought, talk about what we bought. But that's very much like our group of friends. We go out, we discuss that, and I don't know if there's a lot of co-mingling, because if you're at a bar, you talk to the person next to you, you might never have met them before.
But isn't that sort of a microcosm of Japanese culture, though, that when you go to izakaya or whatever, you go with your colleagues and you only spend time with your colleagues, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of a thing here.
Yeah.
And they do that at the U.S. shows, too, but they just come back to the hotel and then hang out until they get too tired.
So maybe one thing that they could next year, obviously, because the venue's not at a hotel, there's no special discount, but maybe what they could do is they could put up a list of, here are the hotels that we recommend, and you get a group of people to come there and stay in the same hotel. That could be something that's interesting.
Yeah, I would wonder, because I am a part of a lot of discussion groups and stuff that is predominantly U.S. based. Does the Japanese fountain pen community have that hub where they are discussing and communicating and kind of developing these communities so that group of people would find interest in something like this?
What do you say?
Not really. I mean, you have every once in a while, Wagner organizes there's this venue, I can't remember what it's called. It's Gojukai.
Isn't it here? The one?
No, there's sort of an evening one. And then it's just we have sort of smaller groups have their own, but it's not really a one place where everyone goes.
But is there a forum or any sort of shared thread somewhere? anything online to kind of create this community?
It's mostly on Twitter, which is not really a community platform.
That's true.
So I wouldn't say there's
Because that's a big part of it. Like, that's a big part of what keeps the community kind of engaged with each other.
in the U.S.
Yeah.
But I wonder if people who come here to Japan for Tokyo Pen Show, if they organize themselves and, you know, whether it's like Reddit or Pen Addict Slack or whatever, like sort of they're going as a group and they do something as a group.
Yeah, I think it's harder to like get added to a group, right? Because I think in the West, you know, you join a Discord channel or a Slack channel or whatever, and then you talk and then you become friends online just because you're talking online. I don't think that really exists here. So you could get pretty much people come with the people they know and they leave with the people they know.
Well, and if that continues to be the case, then I don't know if an after show scene would get that much use.
But there is one though for the volunteers and for the vendors.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's doing right, and that's sort of one of the main,
Perks.
one of the reasons why you want to be a volunteer, because then you have to get to meet the vendors and others in the evening.
Well, here's a question: What do you think came first? Do you think that the community got established and then the after show scene came as a result of that, or do you think that the after show, post show scene created the online community that then just kind of continued it?
I think they're separate, but they converged.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, because you've had pen shows forever, right? But back in the day, people were just calling people up and writing facts to each other, and then now online they just moved that online. But then you have new people as well.
So on a sort of slightly different but related topic, I want to ask Drew. This is not your first Tokyo Pen Show. This is your first time in Japan, right?
Yes.
And you have spent a few days here so far. So what are your first impressions? How's it been?
Well, let me talk a while about the toilets. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, for real though, I was, kind of casually mentioning this to CY earlier, but it's all in the details. Like there's streets, there's cars, there's people walking. Like broad strokes, I can forget that I'm in Japan when I'm just kind of going around doing regular stuff. But when you focus on the details, it's like, wait, what? Why are the taxi cabs have, mirrors on the front of their hoods and not over by the windows? Why are there bumps all over the sidewalk? Oh, they're for people who are seeing impaired. I'm like, oh my gosh. And CY's like, yeah, that's totally normal, right? No. And then the toilets, the showers, all of these little amenities are totally different and wonderful. And obviously the convenience stores, everybody told me about the convenience stores, but I still was not prepared for...
You weren't prepared for it, okay.
No, and everybody told me, oh, you got to go to the convenience. I'm like, all right, come on. Give me some other stuff. But no, for real, the convenience stores, my goodness. And, the cleanliness, I was told about that, but again, still surprises me. So it's the details, the little tiny details that just keep me fascinated at these seemingly innocuous things. Like even just, how things are flush into the walls, and there just seems to be like a fit and finish and intentionality that I'm not used to.
And there are no trash cans.
No, very hard to find.
You have to go to the 7-Elevens or the Family Marts.
Sometimes next to vending machines, you can do cans. I'm
and
noticing.
bottles.
Yeah.
And bottles, yeah. And we went to Shosaikan yesterday, the kind of museum-ish place, and then we went to Itoya. What did you think about those stores?
I don't often get the opportunity to see fountain pens displayed in such a manner. In my work history, I'm used to warehousing and not in such displaying these fountain pens, especially Shosaikan. That was, I saw these pens that I'm very familiar with in a completely new light. Itoya, I've seen plenty of pictures of that. It was more or less what I expected. It's a very famous store, so it's been pretty well documented what it's like inside there. So it was still amazing to see in person. But Shosaikan was not, I had no expectation there. So that was like walking into another world, and it was an absolute delight to see. And that to me is just such a beautiful way to present these items, because you go into Itoya and it feels like they're a utility, they're a tool. You go into Shosaikan and it's like, this is an experience. What you're buying is we're presenting you with like you're adopting something, almost. And it's just that to me, it's like, yes, you get it. That's what fountain pens are to me, and I think that's what fountain pens are to the most passionate community members. So that I just love to see. That just shook me in the best way.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, Itoya, it is a beautiful store, but it's very crowded. It feels transactional. You go there and you buy what you need to buy, and then you get out because it is so crowded.
Well, they treat fountain pens in the same way they treat every other stationary thing, and that's fine. But
Shosaiken, it feels like some mix between like a library and a cafe. Right? You are under no pressure to buy something. You just there to enjoy the experience. It's such a beautiful thing.
There's such reverence for the tools there. Like there's such you see the passion without even talking to somebody. You walk in there and you see how these things are revered and presented, and you know that you're in a place where they get it, they understand you. If you were coming in with that same passion, you walk in, you're like, yup, they understand me here. I can talk to them and they're going to understand that I love these things as much as I do.
Do you think a store like that would work in the US?
Absolutely. I think that if a store like that existed in the US, it would be a pilgrimage. It would be a destination for people to go to. That was a stunningly beautiful store and a gorgeous experience, and I'm really thankful that I got to check it out.
Well, we're looking forward to you heard it here first. Drew Brown said it worked, so somebody go do that. That's your next business idea.
Just do that, yeah.
So we're fielding some questions. Andrew asks, is it the same online reservation complexity this year? So this year, I believe I'm the only one that purchased the ticket, and it's through Live Pocket. It is pretty difficult, but this year I believe they have a English language guide that probably the volunteers put together to show people how to do it. So this year, compared to previous years, it felt like, and I don't have the numbers, but it felt like more people were able to purchase from abroad, whereas in previous years, it was difficult even accessing the website.
Really, I want to take it as well. I thought the experience was quite easy, and there was even an English language version of the ticketing website. I've tried a whole bunch of these Japanese ticketing systems. With all the events, there's different ones, right? And none of them is perfect. I can understand the challenge of finding a good one. I think this one is pretty decent.
Yeah, I thought this one was easier than last year. There are clear instructions, and overall, it follows a trend that Japan is now more and more catering to tourists as well. So I like that. Then the next question is, which store sells the ink mascara?
That's March. I don't know if he has any online presence. I think we have to check and put the notes in the show notes, but I believe that he might be only selling these at events. It's possible that he has one of those base shop type stores, but I believe these sell out at events and he probably doesn't have any in stock.
Yeah, Mart lives out in the countryside. I think he's like a logger or something. But yeah, he makes us. We've mentioned Mart a few times in the past. He used to collaborate with a fountain pen lady called Eric, not to confuse with Eric from Cute Things or associated with Cute Things. Eric Small Things. But he worked with another Eric, and since they broke up, he's been independent. But yeah, we've mentioned him before.
Yeah, and the short answer is, if you want to buy the ink mascara, come to Tips next year.
Yep. Does Tips have much of vintage pens like SF or DC? So I think that's a no. Let's see. Where is this magical 7-Eleven? I honestly have no idea. I just see them at the shows.
So y'all don't have the exclusive 7-Eleven ink in your personal collections?
We have to find the link though, because I'm curious. I want to ask them, how did that happen? It is such an unlikely thing.
Next question is, was there anything which you hoped to see at the show but didn't? So I think this is more of a Drew question.
No, I had no expectations. I had seen maybe one image of just an overall shot of the show. So, no, I came in completely with a blank slate of expectations. So, no disappointment.
All right. And then what is the best thing you've enjoyed so far?
Don Quixote, and the
Why Don Quixote?
because I walked in
That's
there.
so random.
I walked in there and there was a theme song playing. I was not prepared for that.
Okay.
When I say I was not prepared for the convenience stores, like, here's what happened. They told me that the convenience stores were wild and exciting. So I walked into a Family Mart. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Yeah, this is surprising. And that's where I thought my expectations were going to peak. But then we went into Don Quixote, and it was something completely different.
That's just chaos. I mean, if I'm convenience stores, they're super organized and clean.
Yeah.
Don Quixote is like by design. They talked about that. It's just chaotic. It's hard to find stuff. Like, you just find random stuff, but you won't find the same like box of, I don't know.
I was
chocolate, whatever.
so unprepared for that. Like, I thought when they said, like, we're going to go in here and we're going to get a sweet potato. I'm like, heck yeah, let's do this. I want to eat a sweet potato with akane. I thought it was going to be like Family Mart or like 7-Eleven or like Lawson. I'm like, great. But no, they're playing a Don Quixote theme song. You walk in there and you're just like overloaded with all of your senses. And it was just blew my brain, like melted everything I had in my head. But then I did get a sweet potato and just like walk around, Tokyo eating half of a sweet potato with my bare hands, and it was something I didn't have on my wish list, but now I'm absolutely glad I crossed that off.
Yep. And then, okay, we got a comment. I agree. I've been to Tokyo several times, but nothing beats the giddiness I felt at Don Quixote.
Right?
We just call it Donkey.
Donkey.
But it's Donkey, but the mascot's a penguin.
Yes.
All right, let's close this off with one question each. Jacob, you have any last questions for Drew?
Best food so far.
Oh.
So wait, what did you eat so far?
All right. Well, okay. So we've gone to a couple coffee shops. Those have all been delightful.
Charlie's Kohikan and Komeda Kohi?
Here's the thing. Like, he's not going to be happy with what I say because I've gone to some delightful restaurants, but when you say the best thing, like, there's best tasting. Like, I had a beautifully flavored skewer of pork, but then
The skewer was chicken.
the first one was chicken.
The first night was pork, but it's not a skewer.
Okay.
Breaded pork.
Oh God, the tonkatsu. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. You know what? I thought I was going to say something stupid and make him mad, but I won't. The tonkatsu was absolutely the best. Like, just like it shook my soul. But I've also enjoyed eating the little cake thing at what's the breakfast place with the cowboy mustache logo?
Komeda Kohi.
Yeah,
The Baumkuchen.
Oh,
that was amazing with coffee. Oh,
it is good.
that was just delightful. So yeah, tonkatsu.
Yeah, take that 7-Eleven soft bread.
That was amazing too. But
Calorie mate.
I haven't eaten my calorie mate yet.
Yeah, we had a lot of stuff. Drew doesn't like eggs for some reason.
I like eggs when they're cooked.
There was a cooked egg yesterday. You wouldn't eat it.
I opened it up. There was runny ooze inside.
No. At dinner.
Oh no, that was not no.
There was a smaller cooked egg that you wouldn't eat.
That was not merely a cooked egg. There are details involved in this that made it a no-fly zone.
It was a cooked quail egg, and then there was another one which was the cooked but runny egg, the explosive egg.
This man's not telling the whole truth. I want you to know that.
And so what I want to say is, send Drew all the pictures, all the videos of runny eggs. He loves that.
Are we? We've reached our time limit. I think probably.
So my question to you, Drew, is if there's something that you could, two questions actually. There's something that you could bring back to the U.S. shows, something feasible preferably, what would it be? And if you could bring something from the U.S. shows here, what would it be?
If I could take something from here to the U.S. shows, it would be whoever is organizing it. I think that...
Bruce, Karu, you heard it here first.
Here we go. I think that here they are focusing so much on the attendee experience in a way that most U.S. shows, I won't say all of them because some of them are good, but I'm comparing it mainly to DC and San Francisco here just because of the volume of attendees. The actual maneuvering of the attendee is not taken into account in the way I feel like it should be. Here, I see that. I see that taken into account. It's clear that they value the experience of the attendee. It's clear that they want people to know where things are, where their tables are located, and they want them to be able to walk and experience things without any roadblocks. And that is absolutely something I would love to copy and paste onto all the U.S. shows. As far as something from the U.S. shows that I'd love to come here, I would say I think that the nib grinders probably are number one because I would love I think that is just such a beautiful experience to enhance the relationship of the writer with their pen. I think that while there are a lot of, like, you take a Pilot for example, like those nibs are already fine, they're already great, but it's, if you want to, having the option, and having, a plethora of options, and I don't know if you need 9, but maybe twice what we have here, the option to make it yours, something that only you have. You can take a pen that everybody has, like an 823, and you can make it yours. You can bring it to a professional that you trust and say, I write like this, and they'll be able to ascertain exactly what that perfect angle is, what that grind should be, and then it is your specific pen, and it just really takes the intimacy of the writing experience full circle. You've picked your color, your pen, your nib, your color of ink, and now it is made for you. And I love that experience. I think it both speaks to the kind of the intimate nature of the community and the intimate nature of the actual writing experience, and I think it's one of the best things that shows offer. So I would want to dial that up.
So I think in order to do that, we need more education. Maybe some, there was a seminar just now about the different specialty nibs, like the non-United token nibs and the different sales specialty nibs. Maybe we need more education on that. And then once we get that, I think if there are customers, then that drives the flywheel, right? Then the grinders will come if there's a need. So yeah, that's pretty interesting.
I think that a lot of grinders have adopted the pre-sign up thing, and I think that would help make sure that they have the business that they need without kind of rolling the dice and just hoping people stop by and sign up.
Yeah, but you'll still need the Japanese people to know about these guys.
Yes.
And with that, I think
I was going to say 2 things before we finish. The first thing is that I was about to say kudos to Bruce and Kaoru and Endo-san for put together what I think is the best tips so far, and just a fantastic pen show. That's the first thing. The second thing is I just want to say we're so excited to have Drew in Japan. So excited to finally meet you in person.
Likewise.
I've seen you on so many videos. It's surreal to see you in person. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, it's wild seeing and hearing you at the same time.
You should exchange autographs.
Okay, can do.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been fantastic. And I'm personally looking forward to the show getting even better next year. It's already great now. Even better next year. I think they, we had, especially the first couple of years, we're like, where's this going? But they've really turned it up. They brought their A game. I'm looking forward to hopefully more Taiwanese vendors next year, if anybody's listening to me at all. And I think more interesting creators. That'll be really, really cool to have. And, I'm just glad that everybody's enjoying. Thank you very much, Drew. And I think that's pretty much it, right?
Well, the main thing they need to improve on is this podcast, right? This is the most disorganized podcast.
Rubbish podcast. All right. Well, with that being said, thank you all so much for sticking around with us, and thank you once again to our sponsors, the Tokyo International Pen Show. And with that, my name is CY. You can find Qseido at qseidotokyo.com. You can find us on Instagram as well at Qseido.
And my name is Jacob. I'm a Fudu fan of Out on the Big Internet.
And Drew Brown. I can be found on Instagram, DeeSeebee. DCB. It's my name.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.